Well, welcome back to Principal Politics. Now, it's been a little while since I have last recorded or put out any content. A lot of that, just personally, on a personal level, is just due to the fact of just honestly being kind of drained, a little tired, burnt out from this year. But coming out of that, after the holidays, feeling refreshed by that time with family, I'm ready. And we're back here, ready to start uploading again. So, this is going to be our last and final episode of the year as we wrap up 2024. And if you're watching this, or if you're watching this in the future, this episode will be released on New Year's Eve. And so I want to start off by just thanking all of you who have subscribed. All of you have stayed tuned for all this. Obviously this channel is extremely small right now. And I really, honestly, when I started this, I just wanted to do it because I enjoy bringing coverage to you guys. I enjoy talking about these topics. I could literally talk about them with a dead phone in front of me to a nobody, just because I'm passionate about the subject. And I truly believe that these things matter, and that, you guys and the world deserve true, unbiased, and honest coverage, and someone who's going to bring it in a very clear manner to you guys. So on that note, this episode, we're just going to be basically taking a look at 2024, everything that happened, the good, the bad, the ugly, all the changes that have taken place, what the future looks like for the country, what the future looks like for us here on this channel. And, there's a lot of anticipation for what will happen, and uncertainty on other people's part about what this, one term for Donald Trump will look like, and what that means for many Americans, and what happens after Trump. What's the case when Trump is done? Will the Republican Party revert back to what it used to be, or is it forever changed? All these things we're going to get into today, and I just want to start off by thanking you guys from the bottom of my heart for all of you who have subscribed, stayed tuned, being patient with me even during these little dry spells where I haven't uploaded. Thank you guys so much. 2024 has been a fantastic year for me, my family, my wife, finding out we're having our first baby, buying a house, all the wonderful things that come with growing up and being an adult. It truly has been a big year, and I hope and pray that it has been a wonderful year for all of you who have been watching. And if it hasn't been, just hang in there. There are better things to come, and truly, I'm very hopeful for the future for many Americans and for, everybody in general. And so, without further ado, welcome to Principal Politics, and today we're going to cut through the commentary. Well, like I said in the intro, I want to thank you guys for tuning in and hanging in there this year with us. And if you've been watching from the beginning, I wanted to thank you once more. Truly, truly from the bottom of my heart, I really do enjoy doing this. And like I said, I know the channel's not huge. I know we don't have all the subscribers and everything like that. But I have loved every second of putting out content. I've loved every second of making the website, coding it, learning how to do all these things, editing the videos, staying up late, researching these topics. And I'm really excited for what this next year has for this channel and for the future of Principal Politics, and what that will look like for us to, analyze and talk about, the commentary behind politics with, a Republican majority in the House, in the Senate, and with Trump in the White House. And so, looking back here, this episode is just going to be a trip down memory lane. We're going to be taking a look at all the major events and kind of the key components of 2024. And 2024 was really one of those years where, you hear about these sometimes, where there are these pivotal years that really bring about a landslide of change, things that have kind of been building up, and they come to the point of finally breaking. And I think that that was what we've seen this year. Just one off the top of my head, just from history, something that I can think of that not saying in any way, shape, or form that the significance is similar, but we've seen this in the past, just between the tension of the Civil War and seeing, president after president before Abraham Lincoln, such as Buchanan directly before him, and the presidents following up to it, who kept kicking the can on certain issues, kept avoiding certain issues, and letting it build and build and build until it swelled to the point of exploding, and it exploded into a civil war. Thankfully, I don't ever believe we're going to be at that point, and I pray against that we ever do get to that point of having an explosion of that sort. But we have seen this, right? Just the wokeness has swollen so much over the past just decade, ever since Barack Obama first became president, and especially after that second term where he had the opportunity to make it about unity, but instead used it as an opportunity to create division. And then his people who came after him, his, following presidents and the following liberal agenda that came after him, were ran by him and followed that same exact, train of thought. And so it really just swelled and swelled and swelled. And then we got basically the face of it, like the biggest example, the epitome of wokeism and of DEI and all these things in the face and in the person of Kamala Harris. And so she was like the final boss, and not in any way, shape, or form giving her credit for being intelligent or being the founder or creator of these ideas. But we got to the point in politics where if Kamala Harris was to have won, it would have been a sign that that agenda had fully infected and taken over and brainwashed the minds of the American people. Because if they would have been able to get Kamala Harris into the White House, it would have proved their theory of social justice, their theory of equity, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it would have shown that the American people care less about competence, they care less about character and the future of America, and more about these virtue signaling aspects of the liberal agenda. And thankfully, and I was saying this over and over again leading up to the election, thankfully, the American people did not let the liberal agenda, did not let the Democrats pull a quick one over them. They woke up to the reality, and it was a landslide victory for Donald Trump because of that fact. It was this constant, we were constantly being belligered with ad after ad after ad of Kamala Harris saying these plateaus, saying these one-off lines that really didn't mean anything, and there was no substance there. We were just supposed to pick her as Americans due to the fact that she wasn't Donald Trump, because she was a black woman, and because of the fact that she was going to be the first woman president. Not based on the merits, not based on anything she had done, but simply based on the fact of who she was, in an identity sense. So the identity politics. And I truly believe that 2024 has been that pivotal year for us where it finally swelled. It came to a breaking point. The American people had to make a decision. It was either choose Donald Trump and put an end to it, or pick Kamala Harris and give in to the infection and finally say, yes, okay, fine, we give up. You guys win. This is just the way things are going to be. And luckily, we chose the latter, or we chose the former in Donald Trump, and we have made that choice, and the American public has made that choice. And so I think those are the implications. Truly, I hope, and you see this even happening in liberal circles. On that note, what I'll bring up here is Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks. I don't know if many of you have seen this, but he actually went to Turning Point's America Fest, and this was kind of a big deal for me. And this is when it kind of solidified my thought of what I'm about to say. It seems to me that the left and individuals on the left are even waking up to the reality that, hey, this isn't going to work anymore. Our bubble has been bursted. We've swollen to the breaking point. The Americans have thrown it in the trash can. The American public has thrown it in the trash can. And we can no longer run on this left-wing ideology that we used to be able to run on. We can no longer count on us playing identity politics and talking about transphobia and trying to give in to all this, left-leaning ideology. We can't do those things anymore. We actually have to run good candidates now. We actually have to do the work and actually research our topics and do the things that we didn't want to do before. And now, because of that, we have people like Cenk Uygur going onto stages that they would have never gone on before. And so I want to play a quick little clip segment from that that we can look at here for you guys to see exactly what I'm talking about. Here's what Cenk had to say while he was at AmericaFest.
I knew you guys were for real in fighting against the establishment when I started going on right-wing shows and I would say something negative about Mitch McConnell. And when I did that in the past, what I would get back is, oh, no, Mitch McConnell's great. Pelosi's terrible, but Mitch McConnell's great.
Let's do that here. What do you guys think of Mitch McConnell?
All right. Yes, I love that. So look, for my left-wing friends that are watching out there, they just booed Mitch McConnell. That's a great thing, okay? And let's do one more. What do you guys think about Dick Cheney? My left-wing friends out there, we have been waiting for the right-wing populists to boo Mitch McConnell and Dick Cheney our whole lives. Take the win. Take the win. Now, what we need to do in the Democratic Party is we need to do likewise. We need to have a revolt against the Joe Bidens, the Kamala Harrises, and the Nancy Pelosi's.
Well, the old adage is, if you can't beat them, join them. Now, I am the farthest thing from a fan of Cenk Uygur. You will not catch me in any way, shape, or form seeking his praises or giving him credit. He has done some pretty awful things. However, I will give him credit in the sense of what he's saying, and I think what he's saying is basically just a microcosm of what is happening within the Democratic Party. And what I believe that to be is the fact that the Democratic Party is finally realizing that the gig is up. The jig is up, right? They can't run these candidates anymore. Barack Obama was probably the last one that they had where this is the case, where they're simply just going to run on their, charisma, their fact that they're black or they're a woman, and they're going to rally up the minority vote and get them to come out in droves to vote for them, and they're going to be the face of the minority people, of the minority groups in America. That's just no longer the case. And so there's a lot of soul searching taking place within the Democratic Party because they're actually looking around the room and being like, okay, who can we elect around us? Who is within the Democratic Party actually has good ideas, actually can be popular, and who can, do the things that the American people want them to do. And that's what the whole phrase of populism comes in. That's where the whole idea of it comes in, is that the American people have made up their mind on what they want. They want secure borders. They want a crackdown on crime. They want a crackdown on illegal immigration. They're tired of the transitioning minors and all this nonsense. They just want to be left alone. They want to be able to afford gas and buy groceries and buy a house, all those things. That's what they want. And now who in the Democratic Party can convincingly provide that to them? That's where the soul searching is coming in, because no one so far has been able to stand up and give a very compelling argument to that, for that case, to be the person who's going to be the nominee in 2028. Now, transitioning here along the lines of also reflecting upon 2024, politically speaking, some of the major pieces of legislation, the things that were most often being brought up and talked about, what were those things? Well, we'll do this. I'll tell you one thing that did change, and then we'll talk about something that didn't change. The one thing that changed politically and legislatively was the GOP's approach and stance towards abortion, which in my eyes was very unfortunate. Especially in my home state of Arizona, we saw a major piece of legislation get passed with a very big majority. That was Prop 139 here in Arizona, and that passed with flying colors. And I think a lot of that, and, obviously at the end of the day, the people who voted for that, it's going to fall on them, right? They're going to be accountable to God for that. However, I also believe that the GOP is also accountable in many ways, and Donald Trump himself is accountable for the approach he took in regards to abortion, of really doing a hands-off approach. And it was one of those things where it was really confusing because it was hands-off. The whole approach was leave it to the states, let the states decide. But once the states decided, you had states like Florida where they decided, hey, 6 weeks, that's what we want. Then Trump would come in and say, no, 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 no. That's too little. That's not enough time. So what was it? And then when it's the whole thing of letting the states decide, then, on the flip side of that, the flip coin was the really liberal states would go, oh, we want it enshrined up to, whenever, 9 months, whenever, no clear guidelines. Then they would be crying out and saying, no, 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 it's too late. Very ambiguous, very, very gray in that area. And I really feel like that was the one point where I really, really had a hard time supporting the Republican Party on any of those movements. And I get it. It was what they needed to do to win. It was kind of the approach that they took, very populist approach where, only focusing on the popular issues to win. But that was a big change. I'm just pointing out the obvious changes, and whether or not there will be a shift back to the Republican Party being very heavy on the pro-life side and being very blatantly clear about what that looks like for them is yet to be seen. But as of right now, it doesn't look like that's the case. And so we will see what that looks like. Donald Trump has promised that he would not sign an abortion ban if it came across his desk, which is also unfortunate. So that is definitely a battle that still we are going to be facing for many years to come, definitely in 2025, and all of the pro-life movements out there that are working day in and day out. I remember Students for Life. I did my interview with Amy, which I highly recommend you guys go check out. She had some great insight into that, articles that have been posted on our website in regards to abortion and the horrors of it. But that is a battle that is ongoing, and there has been a shift there. And that is something to keep in mind as Republican. And I think it has opened up, this kind of permission structure. And there's a lot of people coming into the Republican Party who are not pro-life, but they care about the other stuff. They love the things that Trump says. And there's a danger there. There's a danger to be yoked with people who do not fully align with us in those areas. You can work with the people on those issues that work, such as closing the border, helping with crime and those things. But we have to be careful in so tangling ourselves with those people to the point of where we're stuck to never being able to change the issue of abortion again, because that is such a crucial issue that we face as Christians and as Americans in the future. The next big legislative kind of thing that didn't change on the second note was spending. This is something that has, basically never changed. Little fun fact here. The last time the United States of America ever paid off its national debt was on January 8th of 1835 during the presidency of Mr. Andrew Jackson. Now, this feat was accomplished by Jackson. He had a really strong opposition to borrowing and made very aggressive efforts towards eliminating debt. And he sold off vast amounts of land, cut government spending, and used all the surplus towards the effort of paying off the debt. Obviously, freedom from debt was very short-lived. But that's a fun fact there for you guys to know, is that the last time the debt was paid off was that long ago. But here's another one. Here's another little fun fact. When was the last time we even broke even on the debt? When was the last time we had our budget set in such a way to where we actually had a little bit of money left over and we actually weren't going in the negative? Well, that would actually have been, out of all the things that Bill Clinton was bad for, the one thing he was great at was balancing his checkbook. And this took place from 1998 to 2001 under Bill Clinton. This period was the last time we broke even and actually paid down a portion of our national debt. During this time, the U.S. Treasury used the surpluses to pay down, the publicly held debt. And there was a lot of economic growth, a lot of factors going to that, a lot of revenue that came, higher taxes, capital gains, income taxes, all those things. And there was a little bit more spending restraint due to it being post-Cold War. And so I bring that up because the point is that has not changed in 2024. Okay, 2024, we saw multiple times where we were on the edge of a government shutdown. The House, to their credit, was trying to fight tooth and nail to get better bills between all the nonsense of kicking out Kevin McCarthy and all that garbage that took place during that whole period for the House. Between all that and everything else, every time they would be negotiating a better bill, the Democratic Senate and Joe Biden would still ram through a huge spending bill. And so just reading this here, throughout 2024, Congress grappled with government funding and debt ceiling issues. In December, a continuing resolution was passed to avert a government shutdown, extending funding into early 2025, and this is the most current one. This resolution included agreements to cut $2.5 trillion in government spending in exchange for a $1.5 trillion debt ceiling hike. Conservative Republicans expressed concerns over the new spending and debt increases, advocating for fiscal restraint and reduced government expenditure. Now, why is it that we have such a hard time cracking down on the spending? Well, I think it's very clear, and I think a lot of other pundits have pointed this out. The biggest factor going into why this spending issue will not change has to do with Medicare and Social Security. I don't know if you knew this, but 60 to 65% of our federal spending has to do with these key programs: Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and other entitlement programs such as food stamps, unemployment insurance, and veteran benefits. Now, not all of those are bad, but the fact that 60 to 65% of our federal spending, year in and year out, has to do with these social safety nets, that right there, unless that changes, unless those are restructured, we touch those in any way, shape, or form, anything else we do doesn't matter. Okay, the rest of it is just, money down the drain. That is where most of our spending is coming from, yet that has not changed on either side of the aisle. The Democrats nor the Republicans want to get anywhere close. Neither of them want to get even within a yard of touching the social safety nets in America, because that is not a popular issue. And it's one of those things, unless the American people wake up and there's high awareness of this issue and they come to the realization that this is not sustainable, it won't work, unless that takes place, why would we expect the politicians to do that for them? And so that's the one area where the populism is not working. Okay, people love free stuff, free, quote unquote. It actually isn't free. It's coming back to haunt us eventually. But that's like one of the areas where we're seeing a lot of pushback, and the American people are not willing to budge on those things, and the politicians are not willing to budge. And so due to that fact, we have spending ceilings being raised, more debt than ever, and going into 2025, Trump has created the Government of Efficiency program, which is fine and dandy. I think that's great. I love that. But unless Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy are going to recommend making cuts to the social safety nets long term, we're not doing any justice or any benefit to our budget or our debt. And so that's another major thing that did not change over the past 2024. Other key, legislative changes, and I think these ones were obvious from the beginning, was just the issue of illegal immigration. Even here in Arizona, there were local legislation all throughout the country having to do with the fact of illegal immigration and empowering local law enforcement to deal with this issue and take matters into their own hands, since Joe Biden and all the like weren't going to do anything about it. All those passed with flying colors, once again showing the populism of these movements and of the issue of illegal immigration and what that looks like. For most Americans, they are in favor of that. They want that. They want it. They want the border to be shut down, and Tom Homan is going to do that. The new borders are. And we're looking forward to that in 2025. That is going to be a great thing. Now, transitioning here into our next segment, just to summarize, we looked at in the first segment, looking at 2024, the implications of the race that Donald Trump faced and the bubble that was swelling of wokeism that finally got bursted, and how the Democratic Party is now scrambling to find what their future and hope might look like. The shift that the GOP made with abortion and the radical changes that took place there and their approach toward it that I'm not in favor of. Laws in regards to the border, everything happening there, those being shut down, and how that has changed for many Americans. That's always been a very popular issue, but we've actually seen it on local ballots now where they're getting the chance to vote. And when they get the chance to vote, it's overwhelmingly coming on the side of Americans wanting the border shut down. And then last but not least, for legislation and policy, one thing that hasn't changed is the fiscal responsibility that we have been having looming over our heads for the past many, many decades, and something that we will have to deal with as far as the social safety nets that have been put in place that are there now. Now, moving more towards cultural, international affairs, social issues, starting off with just the major wars that are still ongoing, kind of ongoing, but pending Trump's arrival. Looking at everything, the first one that started was Ukraine and Russia. A lot of stuff there, that has been going on over the past year. Still major tensions going on there. A lot with Biden even sending long-range missiles there recently, and that escalating some of the issues there. But that is something where Trump has promised and he has said that when he gets into office, he will deal with that. And so that is something we will definitely be keeping an eye out for and looking for and hoping that just, comes off of our back, just get it out of here. It's something that just needs to be put to an end. It's just a money pit that we've been throwing billions and billions of dollars into when it is completely unnecessary. Second major war was with obviously Israel, Hamas, everything taking place there. Israel has done a very good job. They have really kicked ass in that whole war and have, taken care of business, eliminating Hamas in all its capacities, taking care of, all the arms and tentacles of the Iranian terror network, from Hezbollah to Hamas to the Houthis, and dealing with that region in a very, very professional, concise, and lethal way. Hopefully what the future looks like for that region is some form of Abrahamic Accords being put back on the table with Trump at the forefront, negotiating those things. That would be the ideal future for that. But yeah, this conflict has been something that has been going on for all of 2024 since October of 2023. And, hopefully it can fully be put to rest, like I said, with some sort of peace negotiations with the people in that region who want to participate in a peaceful region. And so those are the two major things, obviously, that we know of where there's issues going on there. Obviously, still tensions between the Chinese and the Taiwanese and Taiwan. Threats there. Nothing has formed. Nothing has become legit or real. And so that is something, seeing as Trump is in office, it'll be interesting to see how he handles those things. Obviously, coming in very heavy, saying that he's going to have very, very hard hand and heavy hand on China and dealing with them. And so that is something to look forward to in the future and seeing what that looks like. Now, as far as cultural shifts and social shifts, three things come to my mind. One of the biggest things, and this actually relates to what we do here at Principled Politics, has to do with the fact of the view of the media. Now, the media for a while now have been viewed as dishonest and corrupt. That is no new surprise. However, there has been a shift in the sources of information that have been allowed and that are flourishing. And those sources of information are places like this, such as, just a podcast, Principled Politics, The Daily Wire, other smaller, YouTubers, podcasters, people out there, Tucker Carlson show, Candace Owens show, those things like that. Not just because I'm saying them doesn't mean I'm endorsing them. Just throwing names out there of things that come to my mind. And these smaller podcast shows, format shows like a Joe Rogan show or things like this, people have been able to consume more information, have a more wide array and access to different viewpoints. And because of that, it has really changed the funnels of information and who can have a monopoly on this information, if you want to put it that way. Before, most major avenues of consumption for news media was through the legacy media, was through CNN, was through MSNBC, ABC, all these outlets. Now people are diversifying, and with the access to telephones and to having a phone in your hand, you're able to have access to a wider array of knowledge, information that was not there before. And that is a good thing that is going to sink the legacy media for the worse. Their ratings are already in the tank, horrible compared to times past. And we're hoping that that trend just continues with more outlets like the Daily Wire and platforms and podcasts like this one that'll bring coverage and bring news and cover these topics, so that you're not forced to be, you're not forced to choose just one outlet. You're not forced to go and watch just one show where they can brainwash you and tell you whatever they want you to believe and give you their perspective or their twist on whatever the story is. So that's a huge social win. Definitely a win for the better, in my opinion, and a win that is going to be good for the future. One more major cultural shift, and we've kind of alluded to this in the beginning of this, was the view of transgenderism and the nonsense that is. And we see this even now with the Supreme Court pending in Tennessee. Tennessee, all credit to them, has had a ban on gender affirming care for minors. And now, because of that, they're being challenged in the Supreme Court in a case, U.S. versus Scremedy. And that's expected to be ruled on in the spring or some early summer of 2025. And this whole case is basically surrounding, it really is going to pinpoint and get to the heart of this issue, because this is something that's been going on whether or not this is something that should be allowed, which in my view, it should not. Children, minors, even in my view, adults, people, this should not be having the option to cut off their genitals, mutilate themselves, and be castrated and pumped full of hormone supplements and the same castrating drugs that are used on pedophiles. All of this stuff is 100% to a very sane individual ludicrous, but to the liberal agenda and to leftists and to weirdos and to freaks, this stuff is what they want to do to children. This is what they want to push on children and to mutilate them and turn them into whatever they have in this weird erotic image of it. It's gross and it's detestable. And so that is going to be on the table. And that is a cultural shift. We've really seen a shying away from that. You could even see this in Kamala Harris's camp and even in her campaign towards the latter end of it, really distancing themselves from LGBTQ, distancing themselves from queerness and from transgenderism and all that stuff. Now there's been, kind of a pulling away from that on the Democratic side. Not fully, of course, that is still a part of that. But this whole idea about the youth and being transgender and men and women's sports and boys and girls' locker rooms and vice versa, all that stuff, the populist movement, the more popular view of it, people, everyday citizens, not politicians, not weirdos, not the elite agenda, the elite intelligentsia, the people who are the smart ones who've done the research and they know the difference between gender and sex. Just your average everyday mom or dad or hardworking citizen, when they hear about this and they think about whether they want that for their daughter or their son or whatever it is, they look at it and they scorn at it and they say, this is ridiculous. This is asinine. We don't want this anywhere near our children. Okay, we're done with it. And so if you put it to a pure vote, it would be killed on the spot. But you have this liberal agenda and this intelligent elite in the university system who've been promulgating this for years and years and decades and seeking to pervert our youth. And now it's finally crumbling down, and you can actually see the momentum shifting. For a long time, it looked like everything was in their favor. They were going to get exactly what they wanted. Kids were going to be mutilated left and right. But that is clearly not the case with all the pushback and the negativity that is coming towards the transgendering and the castrating of children, thanks to people like Matt Walsh and the Daily Wire and different sources who have exposed this for what it really is. And Libs of TikTok, wonderful work and journalism on the issue of transgenderism. Now, ending with this, and this one kind of is the hardest part for me, reading a lot of these statistics to you, but as someone who's in journalism, I want to be real. And I want to be forthcoming with the statistics and some of the implications. And most of this won't be news to you guys listening, but looking here, and we'll end and wrap up kind of with this as one of our last points as we look at, before we look forward towards 2025. All these statistics are revolved around stats taken in 2024 revolving around Christianity and religion. And I'll just read a few of these and then we'll work through them each by, one by one. As of 2024, Christianity still statistically remains the predominant religion of the United States. However, there are some key statistics to look at here. Religious affiliation in America, approximately 64% of Americans still identify as Christian. However, this has been a significant decrease from 2016, where approximately 74% of the population associated themselves with Christianity. Now, that was a 10% drop over the course of 8 years. And looking even now, this same statistic said that in 1976, 91% of Americans associated themselves with Christianity. Now, obviously, not getting into theology of whether or not how many of those people are actually saved and if they're really Christians, whatever it is, culturally, right? That's what we're looking at. On a bigger level, Christianity does not have the influence or the the grip that it once had on America and on everyday decisions that Americans might make in their local communities. Now, on the flip side of that, what we would call they're called nons, not nuns, but nons, meaning that they have no religious affiliation. They're not affiliated with any denomination, nothing. They claim to be basically atheist or anything of that sort. This group in America has grown to about 28% of the population, surpassing both Catholic and evangelical Protestants, people who identify as those things, Catholics being 23% and Protestants being 24% of the population. And so just before I move on to the next statistic, just looking at that, the implications are that culturally, now you can make your own conclusions and argue about it in the comments of what it might mean, but culturally there has been a shift. And there is an ongoing shift. It is not something that has slowed down. There has been a shift away from Christianity. There has been a shift away from religion, and it is losing its hold. And we see that bleeding through in our values, in the way in which we view abortion, in the way in which we view each other, in the way in which we view our community and our country. Those things have become evident. Moving on to the next statistic is church attendance. Weekly or nearly weekly attendance. Approximately 30% of Americans report attending a service weekly or nearly weekly. Not sure what nearly weekly means, but maybe like they try their best every week they can. That has declined over the past 24 years. In 2000, that number was around 42%. So that has declined 12% since 2000, showing that the emphasis on community and church attendance has declined as well. Denominational attendance has declined. For instance, weekly attendance among Catholic has decreased from 45% in 2003, from now 2021 to 2023 being down to 33%. So not only is it just on a church as a whole, but also we're seeing some denominations such as Catholicism decrease. Some demographic trends that have been analyzed here is that younger generations are less likely to affiliate with Christianity or attend church services regularly, contributing to the overall decline in Christian identification and church attendance. Diversity among the unaffiliated. The religiously unaffiliated are a diverse group, with 65% being white, 16% being Hispanic, 8% being American, and 7% being Black. And so pretty much the nons, the religiously unaffiliated, pretty much line up perfectly with the demographic population of America, majority being white, second majority being Hispanic, and then you have Asian and Black Americans all lumped in there together. A projection made from these trends, and this isn't set in stone, but this is just a projection. If these trends continue, if nothing stopped them, if the church basically was stagnant and we kept doing whatever it is that we've been doing, these statistics show that Christianity and Christians by the year 2070, if the trends continue, could go from being 64% anywhere from 46 to 35% of the population. So as of right now, majority of the population identifies Christian. However, with the current trends, we are heading towards a minority of Americans being Christian and the other majority being the nons or having no affiliation. So, these statistics highlight a very significant change in the religious landscape, very notable declines in affiliation and regular attendance. And our founding fathers would be petrified at this and mortified at the fact of what is taking place in America. And many people may not understand the implications of the significance of why church matters, why community matters, why the faith matters, and the threading together. You know, a lot of people talk about America as a melting pot in many senses. The only way a community can have that melting or that meshing together is of a shared values. And if we live in a culture where there is no God, where there is no binding faith or moral compass, such as the Word of God and the Holy Spirit, then there is no way to melt people together. You just have conglomerate and groups and subsets of people who will never be able to agree and never be able to work in unity. And that's how you get closer towards civil societal decay. Like our Lord and Savior said, a house divided against itself cannot stand. And so a house divided against itself in its morals and in its future vision for it itself will not stand. And a lot of this, I had a video that I put up, months now ago about, the church and some of the errors that the church has had. You can go watch that for yourself. But, the point has been made that instead of changing the culture for better, the church has allowed itself to be changed by the culture. And in doing so, they bought the lie that if they changed with the culture, they bought into the new hip trends and they accepted homosexuals and they compromised on some things that would actually increase the amount of people, the seeker-friendly movement of increasing the amount of people who come in the door, therefore increasing the amount of people saved and the people that experience Christianity for what it was. That was all a lie. And we are seeing the implications of that. None of those movements have stopped the trend. On the contrary, they have fastened the pace in which America is deteriorating. And we need more pastors, men, and godly communities to be there for Christians and for these local communities to be able to have, to bring them together and to have that social fabric, right? The social fabric is a very major idea in American politics and American culture. Just off the top of my head, Edmund Burke and Rousseau understood this in many of their writings and the things that they spoke of as far as the social contract and understanding the implications of having a moral connection to your neighbors and understanding your obligation to care for your neighbor, to love your neighbor, to help them if you see them on the side of the road and to do those things. That is what maintains a society, and no society worth its salt can stand without a social fabric to keep it together. And so these are really troubling trends, and this should make every Christian and every person who is involved in their local community push for there to be more of an emphasis on that community, to dive into that community, but also more than that, to reach out to your neighbors, to show your neighbors that you're there for them, to pray for your neighbors, pray for your community, pray for your city, pray for your state, and to share the gospel wherever you are, and to help your church in any way you can, to serve and to do the things that you need to do to be the most influential person and Christian in your sphere of influence. And so looking forward to 2025, there's a lot of things to be anxious about, a lot of things to anticipate, a lot of good things ahead, but the one thing that is true out of all of it is that we cannot spoil the opportunity we've been given. And speaking just on a personal level, I want to do everything I can approaching 2025 to influence and to bring about change in my sphere and to bring about good to the people around me. And whatever that might look like for you who watching, doing what you can in your community is very important. And so looking forward once again to 2025 with Trump entering office, with the Republican majority, anything I've learned just through reading, studying, knowing history, knowing politics, we cannot fully trust in these individuals to fix the country. The most surefire way to take matters into your own hand is to be a good member of your society, to be a good influence to your family, to be a good influence to your parents, to the people around you, to your friends, to the people at your work. That is the way in which you can really inspire change and hopefully bring about a grassroots effort that can bring lasting change to America. And so moving into 2025, I think what we're going to see, kind of just my predictions, is the media really, really trying to fight insanely hard to gain back their influence and to fight against Donald Trump. Obviously, the issue of transgenderism is going to be a main focus. Deportations, illegal immigration will be at the forefront with Tom Homan and everything taking place. We're going to see the issue of abortion obviously come up, something that's going to be worked through. And the future of the Republican Party is obviously something that I think will be talked about, as this is Trump's last term. The future of the Democratic Party is for sure on the table, as they've taken a major, major setback, and now they're beginning to reflect and figure out what they can do to possibly fix this. And another major thing in my mind is just the economy, seeing what Trump will do for that and what kind of impact he truly will have, and seeing if he's going to put his money where his mouth is, and I believe they will, with a free market and with what Trump is trying to do, if they change and if things go back to a more steady normal and the economy finally begins to balance out and we emphasize American industry and energy, that'll be another key topic and key focal point of the media and of everybody covering the news, because obviously Trump, being the business mogul, has very much hyped up his economic plan. And so that is definitely something that we'll be looking for, is the price of eggs, price of gas, price of everyday goods, and real wages. So this will be our last episode of the year. We are back at it. We are going to be covering the news day in and day out, doing what we do here at Principled Politics. And so I just want to encourage you guys, as we enter this year, I want to encourage you guys with just this reading of Scripture. And I don't do this often, but I wanted to do this as this is a special episode for me, being at the end of the year. And this verse really does resonate with me in everything that I do, and I think it should with you as well. And it should be a good reminder for you guys about where our hearts should lie and where the really important things are, what the really important thing is at the end of the day. So I'll read this coming from Colossians chapter 1, verses 16 through 17. It reads, "For by him all things were created, in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions, or rulers or authorities. All things were created through him and for him. And he is before all things, and in him all things hold together." Well, the him, H-I-M, in that passage is, of course, Jesus Christ. And that is our hope for 2025. In him, all things are held together. And by him, all things have been made. And at the end of the day, all things have been made, will be made, and all things will happen and have happened for his glory and for his end and for his kingdom. And so I wanted to thank you guys again for this year, for the growth we've experienced in the channel. Even though it's not much, I am still grateful for it each and every day. I look at my phone and I have a smile on my face because of your guys' comments and the love that you guys have shown towards what we do here. And so, my goal this year, personal goal, is to take care of my family, love on them, take care of them, be a light and an influence in the sphere and the circle that the Lord has put me in. My goal for this channel is to continue to get the word out, to continue to make great content for you guys. And I just want to encourage you guys to like, subscribe, stay posted for everything that we're going to be posting this next year. And you can check us out at principled-politics.com, here on YouTube. And hopefully in the next year, we're looking to expand into different podcast platforms such as like Spotify, Apple, and get everything out in there. And so thank you guys so much again. You guys have been amazing throughout this year. And I'm really looking forward to what the future has. So we'll end with this. Thank you for watching and/or listening, and don't forget to stay principled.